everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm really excited to share with you guys some Zentangling and some Copic coloring and color pencil coloring. I use this deceptively simple yet really beautiful Leanne Creative Doodle Butterfly 2 stamp from Topflight Stamps. This is my design team project for them this week, and I made a Father's Day card with it. You know, butterfly isn't something that you would immediately think of to create a masculine card, but I thought this was really cool because it could be transformed into something really graphic with a little bit of Zentangle art. So first of all, I need to let you know that this stamp I think is acrylic, not photopolymer. So as you see me stamping the card front out here, you'll see me doing repeated stamping. First of all, I think because I'm not a very good stamper, and secondly, because I couldn't get quite a crisp image with a single stamping. So each butterfly that I stamp out here, you'll see me stamp out 2 or 3 times. This one I did 3 times because that middle section wasn't being stamped out very well. And all I'm doing is I'm leaving the butterfly in its position on my MISTI tool, and then I'm turning the paper and I'm positioning it, making sure that each stamp is stamping is where I want it. And I'm moving the paper around and just stamping the butterfly out repeatedly in different directions. And I'm doing this because I want to create kind of a background piece that I'm going to be layering over top of. You see me kind of fidgeting here with the paper and just trying to position that butterfly exactly where I want it. You'll see that I left quite a bit of white space in the middle there, but that's okay because I'm going to be topping all of this with an additional separate kind of fussy cut out butterfly that I'll be using kind of as a focal point. So I'm stamping this butterfly on this card base or card front 4 full times and then 1 little section in the corner. And now I'm going to skip over parts of this Zentangling just because it's so long in process, but I wanted to show you that I'm using some Faber-Castell Pitt pens. I'm using the thickest one to do the edges is a B point, and then I'm using a S point, which is small, I guess, and then an XS, which is an extra small, just to create some variations in thickness and in that Zentangling. So the first butterfly I just outlined fully with a plain solid black. The next little one I'm going to do like a black and white, almost like a check. And then I'm going to just show you kind of a little sampling of Zentangling. So this butterfly body, I'm going to just do in stripes, and it's really relatively easy. It's time consuming, I will admit that, but it's really very zen. It's very kind of meditative. I was doing this as I was watching some, easy kind of sitcom TV shows with my husband, and this Zentangling was so kind of relaxing. I actually was doing this while I was dealing with a mild migraine, and I found it really kind of helpful. It kept my mind off of the pain and just let me doodle. And as you can see here, I'm just playing around. I'm doing some squiggly lines, some kind of lightning bolts. I did some curly cues, and then I'm coloring in kind of every other little swirly or section. And this butterfly in particular, I colored up, or I Zentangled pretty intensely with a lot of kind of small detailed pattern, but I tried to mix it up as I went along. This next section here that I'm doing right now, I just did a whole bunch of small circles and then colored in the in-between areas of the circles with the black pen. And then for this next section, I wanted it a little bit more open. So I'm doing kind of like a fish scale kind of pattern. And I'm going to color in parts of this. So I have little arches and then 2 arches meeting in the middle of the arch below it. And then you saw there, I colored that in. The next little section, I wanted a more open look, so I'm just doing dots and dashes. And then this last little section here on the right butterfly wing, I just do kind of curved stripes, and then I cross those to create a checkerboard. And I think this intensity on this butterfly is off, counterbalanced with some of the other butterflies that I've left more open. And here's the finished card front, just the Zentangling part. And you see that I've mixed it up there. I next decided that the background could use a little color. So I laid down a base of a pale blue, just with a Copic marker. And now you see me adding a little bit of detail kind of in the nooks and crannies of the butterfly with a medium blue Prismacolor pencil. I think this is a China blue or electric blue. And then the next is China blue. And you can see me blending out there to the really pale. I think the background for Copics was a B00. And I'm just giving you a quick little sampling of how I do it. I pick a little nook, and then I blend in with kind of the mid-tone blue, and then in the main crook part, I use a darker blue. I'm showing you one last time here, I believe. Darker blue right in the nook, and then I blend out with the mid-tone blue. And if you're interested in any of the particular products that I use, please check out my blog post, which I will link to in the description box below. I think that this boldness, or the details of adding this bold color, really help make the butterflies pop. I also stamped out the butterfly one more time on a scrap of cardstock, and I'm going to do some quick Copic coloring on it. As you can see here, I'm just laying in the lightest color from the center of the butterfly out. This is a B01, and I'm not really even being careful about staying within the lines here because I know I'm going to be fussy cutting this butterfly out. The next section I'm coloring from the outside in, and that is my mid-tone blue. And I actually looked at some blue butterflies on Google Images to help give me a sense of how some blue butterflies that have this kind of, it's almost like monarch coloring. I don't know what the actual butterfly that I was looking at is called, but I got references from real butterflies so that my coloring would have some, some reality to it, even though this is a very cartoony butterfly. And I think that actually helped make the coloring easier just because I had a reference image to look at. And of course, I took my artistic liberties with it, but that's what we can do, right, as crafters. So I went with the darkest blue, that's a B28, and then I'm blending back in with the mid-tone, and then I'm going to go back in one more time with the lightest color just to kind of give it a really pretty ombre blended look. I'm going to show you that one more time. So again, I'm taking the mid-tone blue, going from the outside, from the top of each little segment, and from the outside in, and I'm not really worried too much, again, about being super careful. I just want to get the colors first laid down. Then I'm going to go in with the last most intense or darkest blue and going over the same areas. I wanted these butterfly wings to look like they kind of have an ombre blue look. I'm going back in with a mid-tone again just to connect the lightest and the darkest blues. And then I go in one last time with the lightest, that B01. And I really like how this came out looking very vibrant, almost luminescent with that pale B01 going all the way to the B28. I'm just reestablishing the dark blues again just because they get bleached out a little bit when you add that lightest color. Now I'm going back in with my Faber-Castell B point pen to go over all of the outside areas of this butterfly image. And it goes by pretty quickly, and as long as you kind of don't stop and start your hand too much, it's pretty easy to follow along with these lines. There's kind of a curve to them, and there's not a lot of super detailed, intricate areas. It's all pretty, loose curves. So it's relatively easy to color in afterwards with this black marker. And this Faber-Castell black is not something that I would use if I had more Copic coloring to do, but I know I'm just going to be adding a little bit of detail after this and not using any more Copic, so the Faber-Castell works fine. It would also work fine with color pencils. I just wouldn't use Copics after that because it would smear. Now I've decided to add some white details. I noticed that the blue butterflies that I was using for reference pictures had a lot of little white dots to them. So I'm just following along where they're kind of the heavy black lines of the butterfly image. And I'm adding some bigger and then a string of smaller and then bigger and then string of smaller little dot details all around. And I think that really gives a nice pop to this image. I thought without this dot detailing, it was still a really pretty butterfly, but with the white dot details, it really made the colors pop even more. Just the accent of the blues against the black with the pop of white. So there's no rhyme or reason. I, took my liberties as a crafter and, I went from looking at the reference picture to just kind of doing what I wanted to do. So I covered most of the heavy black line areas of the stamp image with this dotting detail. And it goes by pretty fast. I know for me, the Signo white gel pen works really well, but I know some people struggle with it. One of the things, I don't know if you saw it, but when I first started was I got it started on my left index finger. I think just the heat from my finger helps the ink flow. Now, this is a Father's Day card from my dad, and so I wanted a sentiment to say thank you in Korean, and I have this great Altenew stamp set called Oriental Orchid, and so I knew I wanted to create a Korean sentiment that said thank you, and that's what this says. I'm just stamping it out with Versamark ink and using some super fine Ranger embossing powder over top of that sentiment, tapping off the excess, and then I'll capture this the excess back in the bottle. Now I'm going to take my heat tool to the front and the back of this little scrap of black cardstock that I've heat embossed with white embossing powder. And now I'm going to place that card front that I had worked on onto a card base. I'm just getting adhesive onto the edges, and I am going to place that right onto the card base. Now I'm going to add a piece of vellum because I realized that Zentangling and the intense blue coloring was kind of fighting with that focal point butterfly. So I'm putting in that piece of vellum and I'm adhering it where I know I'm going to be gluing the top butterfly piece over top of that. Now I'm just going to add some glue to the antenna and the main body of that butterfly. I'm thinking I'm going to add some dimension to the wings and pop those up. But I'm kind of going through this, working step by step and not really trying to plan too far ahead. I've just cut the little Korean sentiment, the thank you sentiment, with a guillotine cutter, and I'm going to pop it up on some foam dots to give it a little bit of dimension. And I think doing that gives me, here I'm adding some glue again to that vellum in the lower right corner. So the middle has glue, the lower right has glue, and that tacks down the vellum pretty well. I just make sure that I have something laying over top so that it hides the way the glue kind of intensifies the ink a little bit. I'm showing you real quick that I've added foam dots to the back of the butterfly wings, and then I add glue underneath that vellum piece. I'm doing the same on the right wing, the bigger side too, and I'm adding glue underneath that area of the vellum too. So the middle section is well tacked down, but then I realized the lower left and the upper right really are too loose, so I decide I'm going to add some sequins. So I add a couple of glue dots, actually 3 there in the lower left, and then I top it again on top of the vellum with more glossy accents. I decide I'm going to add an odd number of sequins. I'm going to add 7. So you see 3 on the lower left, 2 on the lower right, and then 2 on the upper right. And that really secures the vellum really well, adds a little extra sparkle, but really secures that vellum, which was my main goal with adding these sequins. That one jumped out of my hand, so I had to do that again. But I like that sparkle, and I like how the vellum softens the background. For the inside card liner, I decide I'm going to use "Thanks, Dad, for all you do," and "Happy Father's Day." This is from the Greeting Farm I Love Dad stamp set. This is the only Father's Day sentiments that I have actually in my stash, so I use these every year. And I'm just making sure that I get crisp stampings of the sentiment, so I'm stamping it out 3 times just because this card liner is a little bit textured. And I thought it looked a little plain, so I decided to take out my Signo Uniball white gel pen again and repeat the dot details that I had put on the butterfly. So I'm going to do that all around the edges of the card liner, and that's it completed. I hope you've enjoyed this process video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in this doodle butterfly stamp, and there's another stamp by the same company at Topflight Stamps, please go check them out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.